Hello, welcome to An Alien Perspective. I am your host, Vulcan the Irregular. This is the show where we always punch up, never punch down, cracking the social consensus, and offering eccentric social criticism for strange times. I'm here today to talk to you about real estate values, this source of stress and shame and self doubt and anxiety and sleepless nights for millions. Where is the market trending? Are the arrows green? Are the arrows red? Is it going up? Is it going down? Should I get in the market? Should I exit the market? Will I ever be able to afford anything in the market? A collective enterprise of putting one's home on the market and gambling with your secure domesticity, which is practiced by millions. Home flipping. Flip your home. You're sitting at home at night. You're cozy. You have on your jammies. You're watching the nightly news. I guess that could be a cozy thing to do. And you're thinking, this home needs to be flipped. I need to put an addition. I need to change the wiring. And then I will move on up and flip another home. And I'll be Orson Welles and Citizen Kane. I will one day arrive at Xanadu, and maybe I'll flip Xanadu. Maybe that could be flipped for a quick buck. This mania of buying and selling. Now it would be really easy to punch down here, um, to say, well, the banks are to blame. Not to say that the banks aren't morally responsible for creating this situation. I'm just saying that's an obvious answer. It's punching down in that case. We have to also look at the culture surrounding this, though, which the banks exploit in terms of driving these real estate mania. But there could also be a world in which people say, no, I don't want to participate in this market mania. But it's very interesting to see the culture that has grown up around it. There's a sort of really deep romantic undercurrent that drives the whole thing. This was more popular in the early 2000s, before the first big real estate crash, with, we want to create a homeowners society. I mean, you could say it really even goes all the way back to the 1950s, but everybody sort of jumping on board with this image of people owning the house with the white picket fence and people being willing to take on a lot of debt to get that suburban dream. And the sort of economic reality of it being repressed, in that case for about 6 or 7 years before the reality hit. Since then, we've gone even further down that line. But what I want to focus on is more the sort of dream aspect of it. The dream of becoming a homeowner and doing whatever it takes, essentially, to fulfill that dream. It's a powerful, powerful sell. It's a very unsettling mix of a deep-seated human need to have somewhere to belong, to stay, to call home, um, mixing that with sort of this casino social reality of using your home as your credit card and your sort of tool into economic leverage, right? Once you're a homeowner, you now have something that can be taken away, and therefore you can acquire more debt. Um, so it's sort of like putting a deep stake in the heart of society where the source of the greatest security and stability is also the thing that allows you to go out and sort of gamble in trying to move on up in the world and make it, or even just stay above water in the casino game that everyone else is playing. Now, one of the strange side effects of this, the idea of a real estate bust and people being priced out of the market, obviously that's been covered a million times. I know no one in my generation's buying a home unless they're crazy. I know things are really practically bad. People are staying at home longer than ever. I know all that. But I sort of want to look more at, well, let's say these practical problems didn't exist and somehow, the good majority of younger people were just sort of carrying forth with this real estate value game, and they somehow had found, decently priced suburban homes, and things were going forward that way. Let's just imagine that world exists, right? And so we just look at the culture of it rather than the practical world, which has sort of been cracking at the seams very slowly. We're in a sort of hoarding stasis of real estate where the people who have it, my comments about the home flipping are maybe a little bit dated at this point, although that used to be all the rage. Now there's this sort of hold on to what you've got, and you don't want to start selling too fast. Don't cut the prices too fast because then uh, the the values are going to drop, and your neighbors are going to get really really mad at you. Um, so don't do that. Don't have a fire sale on real estate. And where are you going to go, right? I mean, you're going to go buy some more overpriced real estate. So we're kind of at this uh, log jam of that. But again, just returning to looking at the culture surrounding this, um, we have a sort of homeowners mafia now, right? It's even formally announced in many jurisdictions as the homeowners association. Um, if you look at many subdivisions, they have a very, very strict codification of what you're allowed to do in your own home. Um, and the whole thing is, in a sense, built of this sort of terror of real estate values dropping, right? We don't want, this is our sort of one lifeboat in society, having a mortgage, having a piece of property to call our own. We're damn sure not going to allow you to come in as some sort of Yahoo and start digging a ditch in front of your home and building a go-kart track and, mess it up for us. Like, that's not going to happen. Everything is going to be codified to the last letter. In some places, it goes down to the number, the colors you can put on your door. Um, it reads like something that you'd read out of, U.S. government propaganda from like the 1960s. Like, In the Soviet Union, you're not allowed to pick the color of paint you put on your house. Yeah, that's the homeowners mafia in modern America, right? You'll have this sort of really, really strictly policed situation um, of what you're allowed to do with your own home, how it must appear, which sort of like what I said about the first class flights is really, really bizarre. I mean, we have all sorts of social dysfunction and strangeness happening, and there's still this sort of highly influential segment of society that's like, well, what about the white picket fence out front in this suburban subdivision? Like, we can forget what all the crazy stuff the kids are up to. We got to make sure this looks nice. And this homeowners mafia is basically successfully expelled the village idiot, right? So, to use the sort of old fashioned term, every village has a strange one, the one who hangs their socks in the window and, maybe puts a little protective moat around the outside of their property, something fun like that. The one who keeps three or four broken down cars in their front lawn. You know, the village idiot is also the one who keeps us all sane, right? In this compact that we call society, where oh my gosh, you bought the wrong color paint for the siding. Like I'm going to faint. Oh my gosh, what are you gonna? How are we going to go on? How do we escape that sort of pressure that we put on ourselves? I mean, it goes all the way back to the concept of the fool before the court in Shakespeare, right? You have the people who are allowed to sort of put a mirror back to society and be eccentric and do the weird thing, and that keeps everyone else a little bit more sane, right? Oh, if I'm sticking out, if I'm doing the weird thing, there's Eldridge down the street who uh, you know has his family picnics at night and turns on the uh, car lights to provide lighting and refers to everyone as Henry. Harmless. I'm not saying, these are sort of dangerous people, but, eccentric people who are not going to abide by the homeowners' regulations, people who would be kicked out of the villages. Um, and what's also really sort of ironic and funny about this is, if I wanted to move to some really, really old community, like some small town in England, or a village in Thailand that's been there for 300 years, and I say I'm gonna put up some like really gaudy uh, display. Then I would say, well, they have some right to uh, step in and say, don't do that. Don't put um, your giant garden flamingo in the middle of our classical architecture. But this is the America, people. Come on. I mean, if I'm going to be forced to live in some nameless suburb of Dallas, don't act like it's some sort of grand European capital, like it's Prague or something. Like, oh, you're disturbing the historical architecture. Like let me put my garden gnomes up, and let me put my flamingos up, and um, let me build my go kart track. Uh, let my kids run around and sell lemonade without a permit. I mean, let me live it up. If I've got to live here, it's not like we have some sort of deep historical style that everyone should be made to conform to for the sake of the preservation of a community. I mean, this whole thing is just made up in the beginning, so at least let me make it up for myself, right? Like, if I have to live in one of these places, give me the freedom to be a Yahoo. Let me put up my ugly fence. Um, but I mean that's at the end of the day, it's your neighbors who are going to enforce these things on you, right? I mean, so much discourse focuses on the government. Oh, the government is going to do this. The government's going to keep me from that. I mean, the government is your neighbors at the end of the day, right? Um, if if a bunch of sort of bourgeois homeowning people are going to decide that the way they want to live among themselves is to have this really sort of strict code of how they're going to maintain real estate values. And the only reason they need to do that is because they're afraid of other people like them, right? They're afraid that, oh, if this community starts to step out of line too much, other people like me that are worried about their home values are not going to want to move in here, and then our home values will drop. It's all a sort of circular thing, right? I mean, so once the standard has been raised, now you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is what a good house and a good community is like. I better not deviate from that, like 1%, because I know, like, I wanted the good house and the good community, but I only wanted it that way because I thought everyone else wanted it that way. So you're sort of infinitely going around in circles without anyone just sort of saying, I like to sit here and eat my peanuts on my front porch and throw all the shells out and yell at passing by's cars. That's what makes me happy in life. I don't worry about all the um, trappings of the suburban lifestyle. Yeah, you need to respect that sort of local Yahoo because the more and more you make their life difficult, the more and more you say, well, we need to make sure our homes are valuable and we need to sort of cleanse society of anything that could be used against us when we go to sell our homes. The more you're going to push these sort of people to the margins, and the more the social compact is going to break down entirely. The more people are just going to say, we're going to completely give up on this sort of homeowning endeavor, and instead of having eccentric neighbors, you'll be living in a fortress, which is really already the case in many of these subdivisions, where you have these gated communities where you sort of are guarding against the uh, demonic element of society, quote unquote, that has been driven out into the forests and wilds where they raise their chickens and uh, live in their trailers and plot everyone's demise and the demise of respectable society. That's sort of where we're at this point. Um, if the housing market was structured in such a way, if people participated in it in such a way that uh, there was more room for uh, people to live on the margins, if there was more mixing of different styles of housing, if there was more single family housing alongside apartments, that's another aspect of this, right? Like we only want to live with people who are exactly like us. Because if we let in other people, then our housing values are going to diminish, right? Um, it's all sort of re-engineering the way society would have worked organically and naturally to fit into this economic reality we have of, I have one shot at wealth. It's home ownership. I'm not going to let anyone screw this up for me. Never, ever. Um, I don't like the way he doesn't mow his lawn. Let's send him to jail. You can look up, you can Google these stories. They do exist. Um, because this is, going to completely end it for me if this is allowed. So yeah, that's the home ownership mafia. That's real estate values. Um, I don't know. I mean, maybe the most radical thing you can do as a bourgeois homeowner, if you're listening to this, is just sort of start walking around your neighborhood shirtless, uh, shoeless. Maybe park a couple cars in your front lawn. Maybe that's how the revolution will get started. Um, just do that sort of thing. And you know, get some really ugly lawn flamingos, get some really hideous garden gnomes. Um,
Bring back some of the traditions of the old country. Maybe retrieve a few from the Prohibition era. Start throwing grapes in your bathtub and beating them down, trampling them down with your feet, and fermenting wine in your bathtub and sell it to your neighbors at an expensive premium. Start doing that sort of thing.
maybe carry a little pendant to ward off evil spirits. Bring the forest back into the subdivision. Um, that is my alien perspective. I am your host, Vulcan the Irregular. This is the show where we always punch up, never punch down, cracking the social consensus and offering eccentric social criticism for strange times. Thank you for listening.